Hey, I'm Bob Pittenger with Battle Creek Church in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, and I want to welcome you to our breakout session, Bridging the Gap, Making Connection Easier for the Disconnected. I've often asked myself, how do we reach the disengaged when they continually say no to the type of groups that we're offering? In this breakout, we'll discuss how special interest groups can help attract those who have never joined a traditional community group. A few years ago, we hit a ceiling. We were starting new groups, but not seeing a significant increase in the number of people actually joining these groups. We knew how many were attending worship and how many were in a group, but we couldn't seem to reach those who kept saying no to what we were offering. Clearly, they wanted something different, but what was it? How could we bridge the gap and find a way to get them into groups? Now, when I first came to Battle Creek Church 9 years ago, we only had one type of group. It was a traditional community group. You had to meet weekly with at least 10 to 12 people, or you couldn't even start a group. And then once the group grew to 16 to 20 people, you had to go ahead and launch a brand new group. So you had to split. I know we say birth a unit or launch a new group, but really what they felt like is we were asking them to get a divorce. We said, hey, go do life together, but now we want to break you up. And so it just wasn't working. At that time, only 24% of worship attenders were in a group. So clearly our model wasn't working, right? So over the next few years, we changed how we defined groups. We made space for flexibility, how often they met, how big they were, and what they focused on in the group. But what really made the biggest significance was when we stopped dictating strict parameters and starting letting them define what kind of group they wanted. This shift led to a spike in the numbers of people getting connected to a group. What we realized was the disconnected weren't rejecting the community, they weren't rejecting us, they were rejecting the version of community that we were offering. A traditional weekly community group felt like too big of a leap for them. They weren't there. They weren't spiritually ready for that. But when we gave them the freedom to shape their group based on their own needs and level of spiritual maturity, it created a natural on-ramp for several new groups. So with that in mind, I want to walk you through some of the creative ways that we helped more people connect to community and how we promoted them within the church. The first is this, it's short-term groups. Now, these were designed as a low commitment test drive of group life. We just wanted to get them in for a short time so they could get a taste of it. And then once they liked it, we would be able to push them into a more traditional group or at least a long-term group. One of the ways we did that is what we call pizza groups. We said, listen, you go out and get 3 friends, start a group, get 3 and pizza's free. If you go out and start a group along with this specific sermon series that lasts 4 to 6 weeks, and you all meet during that time, we are going to buy you a pizza for your first week. And we have started a lot of groups through our pizza groups. They absolutely loved it and it allowed them to get into group for, again, 4 to 6, sometimes 8 weeks. And we've seen a lot of success, and those groups keep going afterward. Another thing that we did is what we call our jumpstart groups. These groups are made up of all different types of people, all different types of ages and life stages. And what we do is we ask them to meet on campus for a short period of time. It may be a study from Right Now Media. It may be tied straight to a sermon series that we're going through. But we ask them to come in, they meet on campus, and eventually, after they get to know each other, we start putting them together by either life stage or things they have in common, and then we launch them out into homes. Our on-campus special interest groups is another thing that really worked well for us. We would have topics like family discipleship, apologetics, marriage, and parenting. These are all promoted during the host moment and on stage on Sundays. And the idea is these groups are just going to last for 3 to 8 weeks. And they help people explore community without a long-term commitment. And so when the announcement is made from stage on Sundays, and we also would send out emails and we would invite them by each group. What happens is we say, hey, listen, group leaders, we'd like to invite your group to come to, for example, family discipleship. It was a 3-week study on a campus. And the week studies were how to have a family devotion with your kids, how to teach your kids to pray, and how to lead your kids to Christ. We had a number of groups that said, hey, especially the young married and those with young kids say, hey, we're going to take a break from meeting in a home. We're going to meet at the church. And they would all meet there together. And they would study together and have this. But there were plenty of people who weren't in a group that would come to that. They're sitting around a table with people who are in a group. They get to know them. And after the 3 weeks were over, they go back to the group. And so these short-term specified groups that were really honing in on a specific topic really help people jump in and get involved. Another thing that we did was what we called activity or affinity groups. Now, these are all long-term and are centered around special interests. We started fishing groups, golfing groups, hunting groups, craft, biking, frisbee, pickleball, workout groups. I mean, we started a whole bunch of different groups for people to go to. Another one that we started was a playroom group. We would open our campus 1 day a week, sometimes 2 days a week, and moms would bring their kids, and while the kids are playing in the playroom, the moms have a study in the same room with them. So they're not using childcare or anything like that. They're just gathering together. The kids are playing together, and it really helped these moms come together and get to know one another. And what was really interesting is on one campus, it grew so big, they had to open a second day of the week to hold all the moms and kids that they were coming. And so most of these activity groups that we do, they're usually multi-generational so that anybody can go of any age. It doesn't matter who's going to go play pickleball or do frisbee golf or anything like that. But sometimes they say, hey, listen, I want this to be for young men or young women, or I want this just to be for men. And so some of these affinities or activity groups are open for everyone, and some of them are just for a specific life stage. But we let the leaders decide what they want to do with that. Now, let me stop for a second and just say what some of you may be thinking, and what I've heard from a lot of people before is this really discipleship? Are we really discipling them? Are we just giving them an opportunity to get together and have fun? Well, what we found is this. These groups became a front door for people who would never walk into the church or a traditional group. It let them have a baby step, if you would, to get into groups or at least to get into community. And once they're there, it let them discover their deepest need is community through just a small baby step to do something that they already like. They already like pickleball. They like jogging. They like biking. They love crafts. Whatever it is, they enjoy it. And so it gives them a chance to come in and meet people who are already Christians. And most of the Christians that are in this group are in another traditional group. So they get to know them, they talk, they enjoy it, and then they get invited back to the community group. So it's a simple baby step for them. Now, most of these are led by somebody already in a CG, and their goal is to help them take the steps toward deeper connection. That is the goal that we let them know from the beginning. You're the leader of this. Help people take that next step. Help them see how important community is. And then the next step of, hey, is there more? And the next step is getting into a group, and then they start serving, then they attend church. It's just a great way to help people start moving forward into community. After we've been doing these type of groups for a couple of years now, I never wanted us just to become the exercise community group church or the biking or the pickleball church. And so after doing this, we try to keep an idea on how many of these we want. And currently, our affinity groups, our activity groups make up about 6% of our total groups. They're usually promoted through mostly our expo, sometimes from the stage if they're launched later in the semester, like in the spring. Nobody wants to do a golfing group in Oklahoma in January when there's 6 inches of snow on the ground. So we will promote that later on in the semester when it gets nicer. But we try to promote them mostly through the expo, which leads me to our third way that we got people into groups, so that we were able to connect with the disconnected. And that was an experiment we did with our group expo. Now, I'm sure our expo is much like yours. The week that we launched groups, the hallway is lined with bistro tables. Each group that's looking for new people will have their own bistro table. It'll have a placard with their, like it would say Bob Pittenger Men's Group, meets Thursdays at 6:30 a.m. and then have a QR code on it that they can scan with their phone and sign up right there. And each table, each group leader, they'll bring snacks, donuts, cookies, something just to tempt people to stop by the table and talk with them. But here's what we did differently. What we did is at each end of the expo, we added 2 8-foot long tables. And on the 8-foot tables, we put several placards with cards inside and a sign-up sheet in front of it. And what the placard would say is golfing group, pickleball group, crafts group. We put some of the specialty groups that we really thought we could get enough interest, and people would sign up. At the top of the sign-up sheet, it'd say golfing group, and they would just put their name, email, and phone number. But then the other thing that we did was at the very end of that table, we put up one more placard that said, I would attend a blank group. And it was if there was something that we were missing. And so people would write down, I would be interested in, and they would list something that wasn't in any of the other groups that we were doing. And so someone wrote down, I would be interested in ballroom dancing. Ballroom dancing. You heard me say that correctly. Believe it or not, somebody wrote that down. Then a few people further down said, I'd be interested in ballroom dancing. I'd go to ballroom dancing. And so that semester, we ended up having 18 people sign up for a ballroom dancing group. They're taking this spring off, but they're coming back next fall to do it again. And so what we found with this experiment was people were looking for something that we weren't offering, and we gave them choices, and then we said, hey, give me one of these. And by doing that, we added several people into groups that were never in a group. And again, it was a baby step for them. Now, the leaders for these groups, we recruited them straight from the sign-up sheet. For example, our craft group, we had 40 people sign up for a craft group. And we looked through the list, and there were 2 ladies that we knew really had a heart for it, and they loved it. And they both said, hey, we will open our home. We have a big room where people can come in, they can spread out, and we can do these crafts together. One was on the south side of town, the other was on the north side, so it kind of helped create a natural divide for people to go to. And we were able to start 2 craft groups. And so we picked the leaders right from the sign-up sheets. Now, I would say this. There may be certain type of groups that you want to recruit the leaders ahead of time. For us, a golfing group, our pickleball group, and our fishing group. We wanted some people over those who had a heart for that so that they would want to chase people down and say, hey, we're going golfing every Saturday. This is where we're going. I'm setting up the tee times. We needed somebody responsible. But for the most part, we let those groups, leaders come right from the sign-up sheet. And so that expo experiment has been a huge success for us. And then lastly, another thing that we did was we began what we call the Battle Creek Young Adult Dinner Parties, which is led by Brittany Shorey, who's here at the lobby with me this week. Our young adult ministry had several traditional groups, but we weren't seeing the engagement or the numbers that we should be reaching. It just didn't add up. We just couldn't get those in the ages of 18 to 30 in a group. So we began the Battle Creek Young Adults for all young adults ages 18 to 30, whether they're married or they're single. We wanted to reach this demographic. So we said, we're going to do something different for them. And so on the first Tuesday of each month, our young adult ministry, our BCYA, Battle Creek Young Adults, have a worship night. They meet at one campus and they have a worship service. It's a high energy service. I mean, it's just fantastic. I love going there just because of the energy. And then Brittany, sometimes she and her husband, she'll have another staff member come and speak. And they usually have a topic that they're launching that night, and they'll study for the next however many Tuesdays are left in that month. But they begin that night with just a worship service. After it's over, they'll have usually some snacks, sometimes a meal or something to get them to hang around and just talk. But we have all the young adults come together for that first Tuesday of the month worship night. Then all the other Tuesdays are what we call dinner parties. These dinner parties are hosted by a married couple, usually ages 40 and above. And they decide whether they're going to sit in the study or they're just going to host it. We don't put any expectations on them except for opening their home and helping with a meal. And we do ask those attending their group to bring, just like a regular group, to bring some of the food. But that's all that they have to do is they just host it. And we have somebody else who is leading the group. So these people are able to have these young adults in and be a mentor if they want it, but they're also able to be there with them. Now, Brittany produces all the videos and the discussion questions and all the resources that they use during these dinner parties, because they have a meal, they get together, they talk, they watch a short video, then they have discussion questions, just like any other group. We first launched these BCYA dinner parties in September of 2024. Since then, our worship nights and dinner parties are averaging between 100 and 125 people every week. Total engagement is between 150 and 200 different individuals in between 18 and 30 that are attending these type of groups or our more traditional young adult and young married groups. And so we've realized that we're now able to reach people who we weren't reaching before. They wanted something that was special for them. They asked for it. And we said, hey, we can have a special event just for young adults. And they absolutely love it. And it's just growing. In fact, we've been able to start 7 groups already. And we're looking at starting 7 more for our fall semester. So we'll have at least 14. And the goal is, before we get to January, to have a total of 20. And so these groups run somewhere between 10 and 25. I will say this, we found they're more effective if we allow them to have bigger numbers. Normally we wouldn't put that many in a group, but because for them the synergy of numbers creates excitement for young adults, we're giving them a little more latitude than some of our other groups. Also, I would say this, because of us opening the door, our young adults, 18 to 30, they're involved in other areas, especially our young married. We found that we have a lot of young married who, they don't want to be in a young married group. They want to be in a multi-generational group. A young married couple that's in their 20s, they love being in a group of people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and even 60s, because they say, we love the mentoring and what we can learn from them. And so we've seen our young married get into multi-gen groups, married groups. Some of the guys, they're in a young married group as well as a men's group, and the women are in the same thing and in a women's group. And we're finding that they're more involved because they have this Battle Creek Young Adult dinner parties. In fact, when we started, our numbers were just dismal. We weren't reaching that many young adults, but now almost 25% of our total group attendance are those 19 to 30 years old. And so I would say this, Brittany and I will host a cohort to explore these strategies in greater depths in the next couple of months. And so if you have a question, would like to be a part of our cohort, or want to connect with us, be sure and email us at groups@battlecreekchurch.com. Again, that's groups@battlecreekchurch.com. And let me just say, we want everyone to be in groups. And you have to decide what works for your church. These things I've listed for you are what work for us. They were things that we said, hey, we can adjust here. You have to decide what things are we willing to give to reach more people. And you have to be comfortable with that. Don't try and let it be a cookie cutter where you take what we're doing and just try to enforce that on your church. But find out what your church can do, what you're comfortable with, how it fits with your senior pastor's vision, and find new ways to offer new things. And I guarantee you, you will begin bridging the gap to those that are disconnected from groups.